Overnight, borrowers take another hit as the Reserve Bank raises rates again. Welcome to ABC News Queensland. I'm Jessica Van Vonderen. Record prices for fuel. The Treasurer vows to crack down on any price gouging. Queen Mary kicking a royal goal as the Danish monarchs visit the MCG. The Matildas gear up against the defending champions for the Asian Cup semi-final.
And tropical cyclone Narelle has developed in the Coral Sea and is likely to hit the coast as a severe Category 4 on Friday.
Good evening. The experts predicted it and homeowners feared it. The Reserve Bank today announced the second rate rise in as many months. And with the war in the Middle East, economists are warning there could be more bad news to come. Rates have increased by 1/4 percentage point, taking the cash rate to 4.1%. For a $750,000 mortgage, that means an extra $113 every month. And the Big Four banks have all announced they'll pass on the increase.
More pain for Australian borrowers.
Ultimately, with inflation that is already too high, the board decided raising the cash rate was the right call.
Inflation above target and a war in the Middle East, helping to spark a fresh rate rise.
We've got an inflation challenge in our economy already, and developments in the Middle East are making that worse.
For the second month in a row, the RBA has lifted the cash rate by 1/4 percentage point in a split vote 5-4, taking it up to 4.1%, back to where it was a year ago. If lenders pass on the rate hike in full, homeowners with a $750,000 mortgage will see their minimum repayment rise by about $113 a month, which means they're now paying $226 more on their home loan since the RBA began lifting rates last month. For a $1 million mortgage, repayments will increase by $151, meaning they'll be paying more than $300 extra.
In breaking news, the Reserve Bank has increased the cash rate by...
It's certainly not the news Anna Sri wanted to hear.
I don't have a lot of non-regular expenses that are, I would say, discretionary spending, really. It's probably just food that I could cut.
The RBA governor was tight-lipped on what might happen next.
If we don't see the numbers indicating that we're going to see a slowing in underlying inflation, let's assume that it stays at 3.5%, then unfortunately we're going to see another rate rise from here.
Would you be prepared to put Australia into recession if that's what it takes to bring inflation much lower?
We don't want to have a recession, but if it's hard to get inflation down, then, we're going to have to deal with that.
Australia now has higher interest rates than many other economies like the US, UK and Canada. But it doesn't seem to be working because inflation here is also higher than in those countries. So that suggests even more rate hikes might be needed. Balancing that pain against the risk of recession, which no one wants. David Chow, ABC News.
Sky-high fuel prices weren't to blame for today's interest rate rise, according to the RBA, but they are contributing to the country's inflation challenge. Diesel records have been broken in Brisbane. In many regional cities, it's over $3 a litre. Australia's biggest fuel companies were today hauled before the competition watchdog as the government sought to allay fears that supplies could run out.
From coast to coast, pain at the pump. Drivers navigate prices they've never paid before.
It's $100 extra every week now.
At one of Sydney's busiest low-cost servos, business has slowed to a crawl.
It's very quiet now. It's hardly 2 customers in 1 hour.
In some areas, diesel now topping $3 a litre. That's above the national average, according to the NRMA, which has unleaded hovering around $2.30.
We are now where we expect to be. That is cold comfort to Australians looking at the price boards and seeing the most expensive prices they've ever had to pay for.
Fuel companies today hauled before the competition watchdog to explain the rapid price spikes as the Treasurer moves to double fines for those found to be price gouging.
They are on notice.
The government is on alert, but seeking to hose down concerns fuel supplies could dry up.
All companies say to me that they fully expect all deliveries all through March and well into April.
That uncertainty fueling panic buying and creating shortages in regional areas. For now, rationing is off the table.
Because we don't believe at this point that's what is the best solution.
A good start is to make sure that Australian fuel isn't being exported.
Ampol's Brisbane refinery currently exports the petrol it produces because it doesn't yet meet Australian standards. Last week, those standards were temporarily lowered to allow the fuel to flow into the domestic market. It's one of only 2 refineries left onshore, leaving Australia to import 90% of its liquid fuels.
We must get back to drilling for oil and gas.
The war in Iran has sparked a broader debate about how Australia can bolster its fuel security. But the government's focused on the immediate crisis and the huge challenges it presents for the economy. The Treasurer was already planning a tough budget with little room for new cost of living relief. For now, he's holding the line, knowing further spending would only worsen inflation. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
And on 7:30, Sarah Ferguson will interview the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers. Far North Queensland is in the firing line of a cyclone, possibly a Category 4. Let's go to Jenny Woodward. Jenny, when and where is this system expected to make landfall?
Well, Jess, Tropical Cyclone Narelle was named late this afternoon. The Category 1 system is about 1,200 kilometres northeast of Cooktown and heading west-southwest at 16 kilometres an hour. But it's intensifying quickly and could pack a punch as a severe Category 4 by the time it reaches the coast, possibly Friday morning, bringing destructive winds and heavy rain. Now, we could see falls of 200 to 300 millimetres with isolated heavier totals. So there's a cyclone watch between Lockhart River and Port Douglas, and Narelle is expected to track across the Cape and into the Gulf and then head west into the Territory and then potentially pop out in the Indian Ocean off the Kimberley coast. And I'll be back later, Jess.
Jenny, thank you. Overseas, Donald Trump has scolded America's allies who've rebuffed his request to help protect oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. It comes as some of those countries warn Israel against a major ground offensive in Lebanon. Catherine Diss reports from near the Israel-Lebanon border.
A wave of drone and rocket attacks on the American embassy in Baghdad. Air defence systems activated. A nearby hotel in the Iraqi capital also targeted. Hundreds of kilometres away, Iranian missiles are intercepted by Israeli forces. Shrapnel falling onto a home in the occupied East Jerusalem and in the Old City, home to holy sites.
The Iranian regime is trying to create as much chaos as possible.
Chaos in Iran too, as the US and Israel continue their assault. Search and rescue crews pulling survivors from the rubble in Tehran.
There are no IRGC forces, no military personnel and no base here. All of these are homes.
Iran is leveraging its ability to cause economic pain, with traffic through the Strait of Hormuz remaining mostly at a standstill. The US president is ramping up pressure on other nations to help protect oil tankers in the critical shipping lane, warning he could delay his upcoming trip to China and taking another swipe at NATO countries.
Thank you very much. We don't need them, but it's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react.
We will not be drawn into the wider war.
The wider war expanding again as Israel conducts what it's called a limited ground operation against the Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. In Israel's north, the military build-up on this side of the border is clear.
We're just hearing an air raid siren now. That's telling us to take shelter. So let's move. Okay. While it's too early to know whether this limited and targeted campaign will become a full-scale ground invasion, we are constantly hearing rounds of artillery being fired into Lebanese territory, and the Israeli government is reportedly undertaking a mass mobilisation campaign of 450,000 reservists.
Cafe owner Miri Menashe hopes to be one of them.
You keep your country safe, you fight for it. Eventually, you live in peace.
The prospect of peace uncertain in an ever-escalating conflict. Catherine Diss, ABC News, Machula.
The two players from the Iranian women's soccer team who chose to stay in Australia have been training with the Brisbane Roar A-League club. The women joined the team for a practice session as they adjust to their new lives. They're the only two members of Iran's team still in Australia after 4 of their fellow players and a team handler withdrew their bid for asylum. Brisbane Roar shared the images on social media, prompting one of the Iranian players to write, "Thank you for everything." Well, as the war in the Middle East rages on, the UAE and the 24,000 Australians living there are navigating a new normal. Home to the world's busiest airport in Dubai, which contributes about $53 billion to the local economy, the Emirates have built their success as a regional safe haven.
Striking at the heart of Dubai's financial hub, debris setting this skyscraper alight.
Target destroyed.
For more than 2 weeks, the UAE has fended off hundreds of Iranian drones and missiles.
Oh my God.
Disrupting air travel, putting off tourists who usually pack these iconic sites.
When you heard the alert, when you hear the thuds of interception and so forth, incredible unease. And then a feeling of resilience started to set in. Well, people were like, we will not be cowards.
Australian businessman Brett Evans still feels safe living in Dubai.
The government has been very forthright in terms of keeping us informed. The information flows through and we're able to get direction from the government and able to make informed decisions. Then I can't see any reason to leave.
In Abu Dhabi, Australia's ambassador to the UAE is now working from home.
Throughout the day, we hear the piercing sounds of the emergency security alerts, and you hear these very loud explosions or bangs that shake the house and the windows.
Last week, Australia sent a surveillance aircraft to help the UAE against Iranian bombardment.
We've been working around the clock because our main priority is, of course, the safety and security of the Australian community.
While both Emiratis and the huge international residents community in the UAE are adjusting their day-to-day lives to the uncertainty of constant bombardments, the outlook is highly uncertain. The Gulf state has prospered by becoming a global air transport hub through tourism and as a major financial centre. But Iran's strategy is designed to shake the confidence of investors and travellers alike.
People are asking questions about property prices, about tourism, about airlines. But so far, it's still quite early days to be able to assess those. We didn't want this fight.
A fight they didn't start and can't end. Laura Tingle, ABC News, Dubai.
A former childcare worker is on trial on the Sunshine Coast, accused of raping a young child. Prosecutors allege 43-year-old Arvind Ajay Singh raped the girl in 2022. He's pleaded not guilty. The alleged victim is among 10 witnesses expected to give evidence before a jury in the Maroochydore Magistrates Court this week. A woman's case has been mentioned in court after being charged with the murder of another woman near Ipswich last month. Police were called to a disturbance in the street at Bellbird Park on February the 19th, where they found the body of 42-year-old Catherine Sanowski inside a home. Prosecutors allege 34-year-old Logan Valentine Edwards murdered her almost 2 weeks earlier. Ms Edwards was remanded in custody. In Logan, a man has been charged with murdering his 37-year-old partner and their 11-month-old baby, who were found dead in their home south of Brisbane last week. The 39-year-old man was taken to hospital under police custody after he was hit by a car at a nearby shopping centre. Today, he was charged with 2 counts of murder, domestic violence. He remains in hospital and will appear via video link in court tomorrow. A 30-year-old woman has discovered that an IVF bungle in the 1990s means she and her twin sister are not biologically connected to the mother who birthed and raised them. It's the second known case in Australia of an embryo being transferred to the wrong family during IVF treatment, after a similar mix-up in Brisbane was revealed last year. Now the family is exclusively telling their story to the ABC's Elise Kinsella.
Sasha Safransky grew up in Coffs Harbour with her mum and twin sister. At the time, she didn't know she had a whole other family just a short drive away.
That's my family home. And then if we just do a jump over to this little clearing here, that's where the biological family live now.
Last year, she sent her DNA to the genealogy tracing website Ancestry.com. Weeks later, the website matched her with a stranger, saying it was her maternal aunt. Together, the pair uncovered a life-altering error. Sasha Safransky and her twin sister were the biological children of a couple they'd never met.
That's really when it started to sink in, perhaps something's gone awry.
She and her twin sister then told their mother, who birthed and raised them.
They just sort of said, there was a mix-up, Mum. We're not your biological children. I said, what? You know, what are you talking about?
The family still don't know how the mistake happened. Penny Safransky's embryo transfer was at Royal North Shore Hospital in 1995, but the hospital says it didn't run the clinic then. A private company did. It was sold in the early 2000s, and that company was later acquired by Virtus Health, which also denies responsibility.
Has anyone apologised to you?
No, because no one's owning up, no one's accepting responsibility for us.
What do you want our politicians and regulators who oversee IVF to know?
I want them to see the stakes of what happens when there's a mistake. I think IVF is just incredible. I wouldn't be here without it, but you just have to get it right.
Housing Minister Sam O'Connor says he wasn't aware a name had already been chosen for Brisbane's newest theatre when he launched a public poll. Arts Minister John Paul Langbroek signed off on the Glasshouse name in February last year, then asked Queenslanders to vote on options 2 months later. Mr O'Connor stood alongside him to announce the poll in April. He says Mr Langbroek didn't need to tell the public about his decision.
He wasn't out there saying that this was his preferred name or this is what he wanted to see. The name was chosen by Queenslanders, and that's a great thing. We took it to a public vote and they overwhelmingly backed in that name.
A new report has warned a shortage of construction workers in Queensland will cause building delays and cost blowouts. Queensland has a lot of work in the pipeline, everything from housing to roads, hospitals to energy. The state government's spending a record $116 billion over the next 4 years, and it's all being supercharged by the Olympics. The problem is, who is going to build it?
There's no doubt that the availability of skilled workers has been the biggest problem that the Queensland industry is facing.
Construction Skills Queensland has done the maths. We're already about 15,000 workers short, but that's projected to rise to 35,000 in 2028. The Olympics deadline, a big pressure point.
Ultimately, you will see delays to projects and projects being shifted out across that timeline. The challenge we've got is the projects for the Games, they can't be shifted.
And that leaves very little wriggle room for the government.
We've been clear that projects are to be delivered on time and on budget. We've got the $7.1 billion funding envelope for Games. For the Games.
Not just the Olympics, the CSQ report also highlights frequent weather disasters, with repairs and rebuilding piling further pressure on the construction industry. So where do we find the extra workers needed? Experts say recruiting more apprentices and women would help.
Everywhere I go with young people, I encourage them to take up a trade. It's a great career, it's really well paying.
To finance now, and surprisingly the Australian dollar fell and the share market went up when today's rate hike was announced by the Reserve Bank. Here's Alan Kohler.
Usually when interest rates go up, you'd expect the currency to go higher and the share market to fall, but that's not what happened today. At 2:30 the Australian dollar fell and the All Ordinaries on the share market went up, then went down, then went up again. Traders were on an emotional roller coaster. So why did that happen? Well, maybe because the vote was a close call. 4 of the 9 members of the Monetary Policy Board voted to leave rates on hold, but were outvoted by the other 5. Who voted what we don't know. But I would note that the board consists of 5 full-time economists with either PhDs or master's degrees, including the Governor and the Deputy Governor, plus 3 business people and the Treasury Secretary. That's 4. Now, whoever the 4 were who voted against a hike, maybe they had in mind that this would actually be the 3rd one this year. The second one being the increase in petrol prices since February the 28th, which has added the equivalent of about 80% of a rate hike to family outgoings. And unsurprisingly, consumer sentiment is now tanking. So the question is, are we miserable enough yet? Beleaguered borrowers only need one of the voters on the board to flip for the May decision to be a hold. And in fact, because of that, the market has now reduced the odds of a May hike from 100% to 36%. The Aussie dollar is changing hands for about the same as it was last night. The price of Brent crude oil is back above $100 a barrel, up 3%. Global share markets went up today, led by a solid gain in New York last night, so markets are pretty sure that the war in Iran and the closure of the Persian Gulf won't go on for much longer. And the local share market went up a bit, thanks to gains by banks and miners. And that's finance.
To sport, Broncos' new recruit Grant Anderson will make his debut in Friday night's game against the Storm. Anderson has been named on the wing, while Dean Mariner moves to centre. The NRL is celebrating multicultural round this week, with 66 national heritages represented across the game.
For Penrith winger Casey McLean, this week is a chance to celebrate his Māori and Chinese heritage.
It means a lot, I suppose. There's a few fair of us boys that, kind of think of, culture first.
Multicultural round shines a light on the backgrounds that shape the game, from family to community.
Being able to, come down to one of these gala days, I suppose, see all these little kids where I was once upon a time.
Big smiles. Across the NRL, players are proudly representing their roots.
It's really cool, especially being from a little island of Malta. It's really cool to be here and celebrate the multicultural round.
For McLean, that cultural connection extends beyond Penrith. His cousin Joe Chan will also celebrate his Chinese heritage with Melbourne, as the Storm look to continue their strong start to the season in a grand final rematch against the Broncos.
I think last year's in the past. Broncos got the win last year, and we got a clean slate, and it's a new opportunity, a new year.
Cleary! After a stunning round 1 victory, the Sharks were brought back down to earth by the Panthers on the weekend.
I think you always want to verse the best teams in the competition, and to come up against them early was a great sign of where we're at and a test for us.
They next face the Dolphins at home on Saturday. Sam Yeoman, ABC News.
In the AFL, the Gold Coast Suns are training for a 4-quarter effort when they take on Richmond at the MCG on Saturday. The Suns faded in the second half of their 59-point victory over the Eagles in round 1, and with the team's first away game of the season this weekend, the coach's message is clear.
Dim always says being good stops you from being great, so it was a bit of that stuff, but it is pretty hard to not look at positives when you still win by 10 goals. But there's definitely room for improvement for us for sure, especially in that second half.
It's do or die for the Matildas tonight in Perth as they face China in the first Asian Cup semi-final, with the winner progressing to Saturday's decider in Sydney. ABC reporter Blake Kagi is outside Perth Stadium. Blake, what's the latest?
Well, the latest, Jess, is that it's hot here, very hot, in fact, unusually hot for a March evening. This time of year doesn't usually get this hot, but forecast to reach a temperature of 32 degrees at kickoff. So very difficult conditions for the players tonight. Now, the Matildas have spent the day going about their usual match day preparations. They took a walk along the Swan River here in Perth, and there were a lot of relaxed looking faces on their morning walk. But what's on the line tonight for them is massive. The opportunity to host a major tournament final is very rare for any footballer in reality, and that's exactly what the Matildas have in front of them tonight. But standing in their way is a Chinese team which has conceded just 1 goal throughout the Asian Cup, and a team coached by a very familiar face to the Matildas. Ante Milicic, who led the Australian team to the World Cup in 2019. So it all goes on the line tonight. The winner will become the first team to qualify for Saturday's Asian Cup final in Sydney, while for the loser, their Asian Cup dream is over.
Here's hoping the Tillies do it. Blake Kagi, thank you. The Danish royals have continued their whirlwind tour of Australia, today meeting with leaders and businesses focused on a green future and finishing the day testing their skills at an Aussie rules clinic at the MCG.
Australia's famous sport on Melbourne's famous ground was no match for a Tasmanian-born queen, as the Danish royal couple trod the hallowed turf of the MCG, rubbing shoulders with Hawthorn stars. But it wasn't always easy to stay on target. Before the kids showed the Queen how it was done. Melbourne had a Viking flavour to welcome King Frederick and Queen Mary as they signed their names into history on their first visit to Victoria in over a decade. The pair were welcomed by the Governor this morning, the Victorian Premier waiting in the wings for her moment.
Lovely to see you. Your Majesty, how are you? Lovely to welcome you to Victoria. How are you? Lovely to meet you both.
The royal couple with their sights set on a green energy future.
Queen Mary and I hope that many new, possibly historical, outcomes will materialise between Denmark and Australia as an outcome of our visit here in Melbourne.
The Queen also reflected on her past life in the city.
I lived here for 3 years and a lot's changed since there, but there's one thing that's still there, and that's the prawn pool.
The royal couple used today's visit to speak with local and Danish business leaders, fostering the connection between the two countries with a special focus on sustainability and technology.
Partnering across borders for a green, secure and sustainable tomorrow is a central objective of this visit.
The couple will spend one more day in Melbourne tomorrow before heading to the island state for a homecoming fit for a queen. Costa Haritos, ABC News, Melbourne.
Weather now. Jenny's back with us. And Jenny, that is a great photo.
Yes, Jess, the skies put out quite a show today with this beautiful iridescence in the cloud, and that brought out a lot of cameras. Thanks to everyone for the photos. These ones came in from Jen, Jeff and Titania. Well, across the state, temperatures have been close to average, much warmer this morning on the Granite Belt, 12 the lowest at Applethorpe and Stanthorpe. Cool in Thargomindah today under the cloud cover, 32 the top and only 26 in Toowoomba. 19 to 29 in the city, down to 17 this morning in Gympie, and it was just 15 in Gatton. Onto the satellite, and we've got mainly clear skies over Queensland, but there is a severe weather warning in the far southwest corner as the tropical low makes its way through central Australia. Already 53 millimetres at Napa Merry, 37 at Ballera and 17 in Birdsville. And we've also got the storm activity right across the north. So storms in Darwin tomorrow with 31 the top, while it's going to be wet in Sydney and Canberra. On to the chart, and Cyclone Narelle is intensifying as it heads towards the coast, potentially a Category 4 on Friday morning with very heavy rain, destructive winds and abnormally high tides. Now, impacts could extend as far south as Ingham. Over the rest of the state, we've still got stormy conditions in the southwest tomorrow before that trough line starts to run out of puff, and a couple of upper troughs which will bring some scattered showers to the interior and then the southeast corner later in the week. Let's check forecasts, and for the north, partly cloudy over the tablelands and the goldfields. We'll see some showers about the east coast, but the showers and storms are going to continue across the Cape and in the far west. A few showers over the interior, but much more likely in the southwest. There's the chance of a storm there, 30 the top in Birdsville and 35 for Windora. Early fog about the southeast. We'll see some showers near the coast through the day and then starting to pick up later over the inland. 28 in Kingaroy, 25 for Toowoomba. A couple of showers in the city too, with 20 to 29 degrees. We're looking at 30 in Ipswich tomorrow. On the bay, easterlies to 15 knots, seas under a metre, and then showery days will follow, up to 10 millimetres possible, but the focus will be in the north as the cyclone intensifies and gets closer to land. And Jess, the last time that we had a cyclone, a Category 4, cross the coast in Queensland was back in 2019 when Trevor crossed up in that area. So not long ago.
It's been a little while, one definitely to take seriously.
Yes.
Jenny, thank you. That is ABC News to the moment. Thank you for your company. Stay with us now for 7:30. Good night.
Good night.